this philosophy, which is that the Constitution is basically either a tool or an obstacle on behalf of left-wing viewpoints, that is now being promoted openly by CNN, again, your objective name in news. They put out a report today. It's titled, Trump Administration Issues a Racist School Curriculum Report on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Okay, first of all, this is part and parcel of a broader effort by the left to suggest that Republicans can never quote MLK. Right? If you say that Martin Luther King's dream, which was that people be treated as individuals rather than as representatives of their race, if you say that that is a very good thing, and it's a good thing that America celebrates that ideal, the left will say, no, we need ideological homogeneity in order for you to quote MLK. Right? Sonny Hostin is representative of this view on the left. If you want to cite MLK approvingly for that sentiment, you also have to buy into all left-wing tropes. And if you voted for Trump, you are simply not allowed to believe anything that MLK believed. Here's Sonny Hostin doing this routine on ABC's The View.
I saw today, unbelievably, in my view, Ted Cruz, Kayleigh McEnany, Ronna McDaniel, Melania Trump, quoting Dr. King, tweeting Dr. King. Those were the same people that were like Melania Trump with this birther lie, Ted Cruz with challenging, the Electoral College, Kayleigh McEnany. Just over and over again with her propaganda. How dare they try to quote Dr. King on the celebration of his birthday when they enabled a racist president.
Okay, so this is my favorite part, is that MLK Day was supposed to be a unifying moment around which all Americans could unify. And it would be good if all of your political opponents cited MLK approvingly. But if your political opponents cite MLK approvingly and they're your political opponents and you're on the left, that's very bad. Then you're not allowed to talk about MLK ever again. So anyway, CNN has now come out against what is called the 1776 report. Okay, so the president had an advisory committee. They put together the 1776 report, which was designed to be a counter to the 1619 Project. And it is a fulsome explanation of the ideals of the Declaration of Independence. It talks about the greatness of the United States. It says things like this. Of course, neither America nor any other nation has perfectly lived up to the universal truths of equality, liberty, justice, and government by consent. No nation before America ever dared state those truths as the formal basis for its politics. None has strived harder or done more to achieve them. Right? That is the basis of the 1776 Commission, and it's a report well worth reading with your kids. It talks about the value of the Declaration of Independence and the value of the Constitution of the United States. It quotes people ranging from Thomas Jefferson to Frederick Douglass. It talks about race in the Constitution. It quotes Ronald Reagan, of course. And the basic idea is that there are a bunch of challenges to American principles that are now rife on the left. And this, of course, is exactly right. It talks about the evils of progressivism, which held that essentially the Declaration of Independence was irrelevant, and the evils of fascism, the evils of communism. And then it talks about racism and identity politics and points out that the civil rights movement was a grand and glorious movement culminating in the 1960s with the passage of 3 major legislative reforms affecting segregation, voting, and housing rights. It presented itself and was understood by the American people as consistent with the principles of the founding. And Martin Luther King Jr. himself said, when the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. And then, says the report, the civil rights movement was almost immediately turned to programs that ran counter to the lofty ideals of the founders. The ideas that drove this change had been growing in America for decades. They distorted many ideas of areas of policy in the half-century that followed. Among the distortions was the abandonment of non-discrimination and equal opportunity in favor of group rights, not unlike those advanced by John C. Calhoun and his followers. Right? I mean, I've written about all of this. I've talked about it on the show. There's nothing racist about this report. CNN's headline is, quote, Trump administration issues a racist school curriculum report on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So you are now in direct opposition to Martin Luther King Jr. if you believe that America was gloriously founded, did not live up to its ideals, and progressively realized those ideals over time, and that identity politics strips away those ideals. Now you must be banned, right? You're ostracized. You're a racist if you believe all of those things. Okay, we're going to purge our public schools of these sorts of ideas. We're going to cram down on American citizens ideas they do not agree with. We will use our institutional power outside government in order to do that. We will use the institutions of the media, of Hollywood, of social media. You'll see it in every area of your culture. You'll see it in your kids' schooling. Right? This is what the left-wing authoritarians would like. Okay, and then they would like to do it using government itself. And then they would like to formalize this arrangement. They would like to use the powers of the executive in order to push all of this stuff forward. They want to weaponize every element of the government in order to push forward a left-wing viewpoint. Facts don't care about your feelings, and it's a fact that The Ben Shapiro Show is the largest conservative podcast in the nation. Be sure to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on all of our content.